Hi, I am Nicki Corinne White, and I am your host on Boldly Ministries podcast. And today we're going to chat with Megan MacKenzie, and she is from Idaho and has taught missionary kids for ages, and she just had a role change with that. She's in one of the testimonies in my book, Bold, Living Intentionally in Today's World. And I've known her for quite a while, and now she taught missionary kids in Togo, Togo, West Africa, and now she has switched roles and she's a specialist in member care department at Missionary Aviation Fellowship in Nampa, Idaho. I've known about MAF for years and always just loved them. And Megan, I don't know, you can tell if this is true or not, but I've heard that there is a plane in the world landing every minute, an MAF plane.
I just heard that stat the other day, and we have, that there's the way MAF is around the world and the different organizations within MAF, that, there's planes, planes landing.
And some of the remote areas, some of the landing strips are just tiny and short, and that's why they're small planes and they take supplies or people or medical things, or they have all sorts of roles, and it's just a great thing. But we're going to back it up a little bit. And Megan, I first wanted to talk to you about your time in Togo teaching the children of the staff members at Hospital of Hope. And how is it different than teaching in America? And tell us about your life there. And I'm sure with spiders and snakes and 130-degree weather, there was some things to adjust to your first year.
Yeah, for sure. So, I was a public school educator here in Idaho for 7 years before I even went over to Africa, to Togo, to teach. And there's a lot of differences. Obviously, I went from a class of 29 fourth graders that I loved dearly and taught, day in and day out, to a class of anywhere from 6 to 16 students and anywhere from 4 to 5 different grades. So that right there was just a huge difference and a big adjustment in even how I was used to teaching and what I would do.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, you add in just cultural differences and beyond the classroom, adjusting to the heat, the different language, power outages, water shortages, just really made for a new, unique experience. And so much so that my first year there, I was ready to call it quits and not even finish the year. And then instead, God had me there for close to 8 years instead. And so, those are just the physical differences. I think then beyond that, again, with my kids in America, I loved them immensely and enjoy teaching them. But it really is different on a mission field. You become a part of the family for those kids. I was Aunt Megan to those kids. And so it was more than just teaching them in the classroom. There was also, I'm coming over for dinner and I'm going to stay for a movie, or let's go play disc golf, or let's go to the pool, or come to market with me. And so there was just a lot of relational experiences beyond just I'm teaching you how to do math.
Right. I love that you said to me that it's doing life. Because it's all aspects of life.
Yeah.
And that's a neat relationship. I think I would enjoy that as teaching. Just connecting with the kids so much. And also from you being there for so long, you really had a burden for the kids in the village that weren't just on the compound, but other kids also. Why don't you tell us, I'm not going to say it correctly, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your vision for the village schools?
Yeah, kind of back in 2016, that is not true. I'm sorry, my apologies. In 2018, when I first went back to Togo for my second round, the idea began to present itself of opening a Christian school within the city of Mongo, where our hospital is. And where we are located, it's a very heavy Muslim population, as well as animistic, and often the two mixed together. And so believers are few and far between. And so the idea of opening this school would just have such a huge impact on our community, not only from an education standpoint, but obviously from a spiritual standpoint. And so pretty early on in 2018, I got placed on the missionary committee of it. And from there, eventually ended up on the board, which was a mixture of missionaries and Togolese. And we opened doors in 2021 and were able to offer basically pre-kindergarten through third grade. And since then, we've added a year every time. And it's just been such a fantastic testimony to Mongo, because they recognize the love and care that their kids are getting. And that's so different from the government schools and how things are run there. And it's just been so exciting to be able to have kids with us for 6 hours a day and be able to tell them about Jesus. And we have families who are Muslim who send their kids anyway, and they know that their kids are going to learn about Jesus, and they're okay with that. And so it's so exciting to look ahead at training the next generation, not only with good education, but also with this idea that if they become believers in Christ, the transformation that the community of Mongo can have. And it's just been so fantastic. And really, in the final couple of years that I was there in Togo, the past 2 years, really became such a passion project of mine, and a lot of time and energy and a lot of money that we needed to raise to build that school. But we have a beautiful building now.
And didn't you say that you want to do more than just that school?
Well, we're looking at, they're already tackling adding on the middle school portion. And so we're there, that's already the next project, because we've maxed out with our grade that we kept adding now has to be middle school. And so they're trying to figure out how to begin that building project. And we're a part of a group of Christian schools within Togo, because down in southern Togo, there's already quite a few. So we kind of joined that association. But it is the first one this far north in Togo. And so, it's just been exciting, and to see our teachers grow and to see the school grow. It went from not quite 100 students our first year, and this year, 3 years later, we're at close to 200.
Oh, that's
students.
so awesome.
So,
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And so is your vision for that, like that they would continue to do that till it's all... The goal is, which feels so insurmountable, and like, I just don't even know how we're going to hit it, but God is bigger than this, that we're going to go middle school and high school. And even the director of this association, he's like, and why not get a university? so they're dreaming really big over there. Thinking big.
Right now, we'll try to tackle middle school.
Awesome. Okay. Like I said previously, I've known several people that have worked for MAF, and I just have the most respect for them and all that they go about doing. And why did you decide to transition from living in Togo and teaching those kids and what you're now doing at MAF?
It's a crazy way it came about. I had taken a short furlough from Togo back in summer of 21. And during that time, I really started evaluating that perhaps, I had maybe 3 to 5 more years in Togo, and then would start trying to see what God would transition me to. And it was really hard for me to imagine what that transition would be, to go from something what felt so meaningful, and again, being a part of kids' lives and their families, and passionate about the ministries that are happening there. And so it was hard to imagine just coming back to a classroom position. And so I didn't know what that would be. And then instead of 3 to 5 years later, it was really 3 months later that this position at MAF opened up. and was brought to my attention from a friend of ours that goes to our church and are being sent out with MAF. And it was an education specialist. And I read the job description, and I had my team leaders in Togo reading it. I had my pastor in Idaho reading it. And I've never had so many people say, this job is
Perfect
written
fit.
exactly for you, Megan,
Yeah.
and you need to apply for it.
Awesome.
And so with encouragement of leaders on both sides of the ocean, I started to pursue the position. And MAF has been super supportive in letting me finish out the school year before I came to this job, and just even the transition of life from Africa to America again. And really, it was just such a God thing. And it's taking a lot of the skills I acquired while teaching overseas to use on a broader, more global scale, beyond just a Togo team of 10 families to a field that has 60 families, or, however many families MAF has, because I actually don't know that stat.
So, but explain a little bit then, what do you do as the specialist for these kids they're missionary kids, but all over the world, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So my technical title is education specialist, but I'm under the umbrella of member care because we care for the whole family, and that includes their kids. And so my job kind of covers three things. I either do teacher support, because MAF does send out short-term teachers to some various locations. And so I'm there for them from a member care standpoint, from let me give you some advice on teaching situation standpoint. And then I work with family education, so all ages, from pre-kindergarten to pre-college, just helping them with curriculum ideas, when to transition to an online school, should they go, should we consider a boarding school, and just helping families evaluate best education practices for them. And then the third piece is kind of working with our anywhere from 4 years old all the way through seniors in high school, kind of member care for the actual missionary kids, and meeting with them, building relationship, helping them talk about emotions, transitions, all the things that go with that. So
are you able to connect with your computer with really remote countries, or is it tough with certain places? Are some places harder than others?
Yeah, I think anytime you're trying to connect to a country or a location in Africa, in Indonesia, or Haiti, the internet can be super unreliable. So sometimes it works really well and sometimes it doesn't. So far, I would say that most of our locations, thanks to our IT department, have really reliable internet for the most part, with the exception of maybe Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC. They're a little more difficult at times, but so thankfully we have good interactions to where emails, or if I needed to do like a phone call, usually the internet's good enough to be able to do that and just work around the time zones.
Yeah. Well, man, I can really see how that would be so needed to help these parents too. With, I mean, knowing that you were going to be, in a role that would help them while they're doing their mission work. You're not there doing life like you were in Togo, but you're helping them do life. And explain to me a little bit about how you had mentioned to me about that sometimes when kids get older, the missionaries leave the mission field, and this is a tool to maybe help them in different ways so that they could stay on the mission field longer.
Yeah, I think, there's a variety of reasons of why a family or a couple or a single leave the mission field. But one of them for families is definitely the need for education. And I think often what we see is families starting to have kids hit high school and there's not viable education options. And so, they say, hey, we got to go back to the States so our kids can do high school and get ready for college or whatever's after that. And so just really trying to come alongside them and being like, hey, well, let's evaluate, do we have another program that offers a better high school solution, and potentially you switch programs? Do we have some online options we can put you in? Sometimes it even goes as far as, the parent's confident with homeschooling, but they can't be the English teacher because they're also the mom, and
Right.
that brings conflict. And so then I become the English teacher and grade essays. And,
Yeah.
so we just always trying to think out of the box of how to use the resources we have and see what can work for different families and different children, to keep them serving and doing what God has called them to do,
Right.
as best as we can.
Yeah. So, what at MAF in Nampa, Idaho, where the headquarters is, are there other people in the education field working there with you about this? Or are you the only person that's doing this for all the MAF missionaries everywhere?
Yeah, no. So there's one other person who does the exact same job as me. And so we're kind of tackling it together, and one brain together trying to do this. And then we have a third person who helps with the member care of the teenagers. So he doesn't help with the education piece, but he does help with the touch point of communication with our kids on the field.
Yeah.
So,
Do you, are most of the missionary kids, do they go to college and not stay on the field?
Now that gap years are becoming more and more popular and a normalized thing, we are starting to see some kids who choose to take a gap year and stay with their families, because sometimes that lines up with their furlough.
Yeah.
And then they come home and then get settled in. But no, we do have quite a few where, they make that transition to college in America, and families stay over in their field of choice. And, and like I said, our goal is to serve and help families, but also I guess I want to follow up and say that we always also still emphasize that family comes before ministry.
Exactly.
And recognizing that sometimes you do have to make those hard decisions and what's best for your family. And that doesn't mean leaving the field if that's what is the situation.
Yeah. I'm an older person, and when I was at college, I had a lot of missionary kid friends, and some of them were just, especially in Africa, were just sent to boarding schools. And they were a little on the resentful side of that. Do you think that this is something that could really alleviate some of that feeling?
Yeah, I think that's why actually you're seeing more and more mission agencies in general. I mean, I think MAF is doing a fantastic job and super on top of it. But mission agencies in general have created member care departments, and also specifically departments dealing with kids, because we are seeing a generation of former MKs, or TCKs as we call them, third culture kids, live with that resentment of how their life was on the field, and then that feeling of abandonment when they went to college. And so by bringing in this member care piece, the hope is to really alleviate that and not have these 18, 19, 20-year-olds with those types of feelings, and to feel supported and to have healthy transitions from a country that felt like home to a country that is supposed to be home but isn't, because they didn't grow up in America.
I wish all missions agencies had this type of a thing.
Yeah. And they're getting there. There's a lot getting there.
Are there several mission agencies that are doing this kind of idea?
Yeah, more and more.
Well, and some of that is because of the tech world, right? Because they didn't used to have the computers to, go over that with. So it made it a little bit more difficult. So I know that you travel some with this new job. And so instead of just being in Togo, now you get to go see some of these places. So tell me a little bit about that. Why are you able to do that?
Well, I think MAF as an organization, we really put an emphasis on being able to visit fields, because nothing can compare to a face-to-face visit and getting to see how life is done in their home and on that base and all those things. And so MAF has made it a priority within the budget for our member care department to do visits and go see these families, whether it's adult member care or an education visit. And so, so getting to travel twice a year, and between all of us, we end up hitting most of the bases within the MAF world.
That's awesome.
And so I just got back from a trip from Lesotho, which is in Southern Africa, for those of you that need to look it up, and got to meet with our 6 families there and talk education and get to know their kids.
Awesome.
And it just builds a great relationship to where then when they have a question, there's no hesitancy to reach out and say, hey, how do I do this? What should I do about this? And so it was
do you have
fantastic trip.
If people have questions about MAF, or do you have an email for them or information about them, or how about just contacting you if they have missionary friends that need help with their kids or whatever?
Yeah. So for sure, from like a basic standpoint, maf.org is our website, and you can look and see all the places where we're serving and how to be a part of that, whether it's from a prayer standpoint or financial donations, things like that. For me specifically, it's my name, M. MacKenzie at maf.org is my email. And already just starting to work with different TCKs that we even have here in the Boise Valley, but weren't MAF people.
Right.
And so doing some of that work.
That's cool.
And missions, no matter what organization you go with, the harvest is ready, and we just need the workers. And so whether it's MAF, or if you're a doctor, I'll do my shameless plug for the Hospital of Hope with ABWE also. Workers are needed. Awesome. And so I would love to talk to someone about that missions journey for sure.
Right. Well, I have several books out, but this one shares part of Megan's story, and that's great. And these podcasts will come up. I'm going to put them on my social media and on our YouTube site, or you can go to my website at Nicki, Nicki, Corinne, CORINNE, White .com, or if you need to email me, it's just, you can email me at Gmail. The same title. Anyway, and it's great to be able to do this, to connect with these people that have just different things going on, and it gives us ideas, and I think it inspires us to find a niche where we can minister in different ways that maybe we didn't think of, rather than just at your church. There's a lot of job openings out there, and I think that getting some ideas like this, that's great, and helping out. I'm so thankful for Megan and her helping out these missionary kids. Thanks for being on our show, Megan.